What is going on, everybody? Minus here, and we are in our pre-show. If you're checking this show out on demand and you're hearing me right now, skip yourself ahead about 5 minutes and you'll be right to the start of the show. So we usually start a few minutes early, let people get into the chat, say hello to a few people, BS a little bit, drink my booze or coffee, do some banter. And right now I'm drinking some coffee with, I thought I had amaretto left, I didn't. So I'm drinking coffee with Fireball in it instead, because that's all I had.
How could you let yourself run out of amaretto? Really?
I don't know. Apparently the girlfriend said when my mom was here last time and we got all stupid drinking, apparently we finished that off, and I didn't remember. So, oops.
You better replace it before she finds out.
Better replace it. I should have replaced it before I found out was the key here. So, hello to everybody who's in the chat early tonight. I see Drac in there, Gulu Gulu. I see Nelf already posting in there. We got Tech Ninja, what is going on? We have Kaladin. Kaladin, do I say that right? I know that's JJ. I think that's his character name.
Yep.
So I finally get his name right, and he changes it to something else hard to pronounce. That's my luck.
That's not hard to pronounce.
Oh, look, so Kat is my mom and Jen is my girlfriend. They just both happen to be in here while we're talking about that. So yeah, that night was a good night. We drank a lot of amaretto and other stuff. I think I don't know.
There are worse things that you could have been drinking. So.
Oh man. JJ can't log into his other Twitch account. Send him a verification code, but it's not coming through. Gotta love security. Oh, look at that.
Oh, that sucks.
Well, that's like an extra follow. I think that's cheating when people make multiple accounts and follow with both of them. But you know what? We've had a ton of integrity. It's okay. Drax says he hacked them.
Yeah, it's Drax's fault. It's always Drax's fault.
Of course, of course. What's up, Lucy? How are you? Excited for tonight's show, guys. This is going to be a little bit of a crazy one. We have a lot to talk about. I don't want to get too into it because then we'll just reintroduce it here in a few seconds, but it should be a good show tonight. I'm hoping to get the green room in here quite a bit tonight because it's really just tons of stuff, so. Oh, man. No, I'm ready. I have money on the game tonight. So up in a little window here, I have the score pending so I can keep track of the football game tonight. Is the battle of the worst two football teams that have ever played football, maybe ever. And I got a few parlay bets going on it. So maybe you'll hear me yelling and screaming tonight. We'll see. Yeah, Random Rob, what's up? He says Thursday Night Football on PlusYou. Yep. Yes. And again, it should be a good show. We're talking about a lot of different things tonight. So kind of jumping all over the place and getting you guys in from the green room. We already have 6 people in the green room. We haven't even started the show. So that is a good sign. We'll be going through quite a bit. So I'm excited. 5 months. Thanks, Jen. I wonder, like, is that okay to have your girlfriend subscribe to you? Like, should I be gifting her subs or she should buy in, right?
I think you're safe as long as she doesn't unsubscribe. Yeah,
like when we don't see that subscribe, right? We're like, uh-oh, what happened? She must show off your number one fangirl. She better be, or else I'll get in trouble for that. Just kidding. Show her devotion with money. What's going on, Shucklack? All right, well, I am seeing the clock about to turn to 9. Are you ready to go, Nafel?
Yeah, sure. I'm ready.
Drax has so many inappropriate jokes. And with that, let's go ahead and start this show.
Oh, we're live? We're streaming right now? Cool. Awesome, man. Let me just...
What is going on, everybody? Minus here from Pantheon.plus. And this is our first show in a little while. We did the dev recap at the end of last month, and we're almost at the end of this month. But we've been busy, and I'm exhausted. That's why the coffee is here and it has a little bit of alcohol in it to get me going. So if you look at the top of the screen, the topic tonight is crazy month from a lot of different aspects and kind of a potpourri. So we're going to kind of talk all over the board about Pantheon tonight. There is a lot to talk about. So with that being the case, I don't want to wait any longer here. I'll introduce my co-host, Nefel. What's going on? How are you?
I'm doing good, Minus. How are you doing?
I'm doing real good, man. I'm doing real good. And if it wasn't for Nefel, I don't know if we would have got this show going. I was dragging my feet a bit and he's like, how about we do a show? I'm like, okay. So,
I just thought, there's a couple of things that we can maybe talk about that might be interesting to people. So yeah, that's how it all happened. But,
yeah. So if you're not sick of the endless amount of Pantheon PlusYou or Pantheon Plus videos that have been coming out, you can deal with me even more. So congratulations. I'm sorry. Let's get into it. I'm going to start by go ahead and firing up a poll on the screen here. And it's a pretty simple one. Just some of the topics that have come out this month that we're going to be going through tonight. So the poll question is, what is the most exciting thing to you this month in regards to Pantheon? And just looking at some of the options we had and stuff we're going to talk about tonight. We had the website overhaul. I think that was like literally to start the day, right? We had pre-alpha 5 news, and then we had the pre-alpha 5 extension. And then thankfully VR allowed us to talk about our Pantheon experience in PA5. So there's a lot around PA5, a couple different shakeouts and some other stuff that was put out there. We had Joppa at PAX this weekend. Now that interview was actually filmed, I think like 3 weeks ago or something like that. But it went live for everybody to check out this week. And then obviously we did a huge video series on the classes, right? Like we kind of updated some of the classes. So that kind of ties into the website overhaul, but I don't know if you're like me or not. I know you're a big crafter, but I am such a classist. I just love classes, man. I don't know. How do you feel about, well, let's start there. How do you feel about the classes, where they are now, where they were, and just how the website is sort of presenting them to new discoverers or old discoverers of Pantheon? So I'll let you start with that.
Yeah, so, I can't say enough good about the new website. It's been sorely needed for a long time, and I like the way that the classes are being presented now as opposed to how they were before. That said, I think it's important that we don't necessarily know everything about all of the classes yet. Like the stuff on the website is highlights.
Yeah.
It's, here's a few of the cool abilities that a class gets, or here's some of the kind of iconic things that they can do. But it's not everything. There's still stuff that we're going to discover once we are able to get into the game, during alpha or beta or at launch. And that's exciting to me, right? Because when I play a class, any class, I want to feel like I'm really learning and growing as I play.
Yeah.
I don't want to know everything going into it right at the beginning. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited about the diversity of classes that Pantheon has. Like I really like the selection that we're going to get. And it really makes me think that like playing a rogue, for example, is going to feel a lot different from playing a warrior. And that's not something that I've been able to say in a lot of games recently. So I'm excited about that. But I'm hyped if you can't tell.
Yeah. No, I mean, obviously we put out a video for each one of them and we did it in pretty record time. It was pretty insane. I literally was falling asleep at my computer trying to get all that stuff done. And I'm not saying that complaining. It's because I love classes. Like a lot of people have asked me when I look at an MMORPG, what am I looking for first? And the first thing I look at is classes. Any MMORPG, and I don't play any mobile ones, but I've looked at them, right? Like you always sort of just look and see what's going on, right? So like I'll look at a mobile game or any RPG, and first thing, classes. Like what can I be? So I was a big fan of what they did, and we said a lot about the fact that was not a complete spell list. It says it on the website. We said it in every video, but in a lot of the comments that we had, people, were kind of like, they got rid of this, they got rid of that. No, they didn't. It's not in plain sight. It might be being reworked. It might be being renamed, but we don't know what's gone just because it's not shown, which I think is really important, right? and I keep saying it because there seems to be a lot of people, like I've seen people recently say, they took this away from my class. I don't want to play it anymore. Well, no, they didn't. This is just why we did this is because think about this. So it was a preemptive thought of mine that when this old website is gone, it's gone. We're not going to be able to go back and find it. So we went on a journey and we screen capped everything, like literally every page. We documented everything in the FAQ. And so what we were able to do is kind of look side by side and say, well, here's how they presented the classes a long time ago, and here's how they presented the classes now. And I think that showing that and also having these videos now that we can go back when a new spell comes out and be like, oh, okay, look, here's the ability that they kind of brought back and just announced, but it's been changed. And I really personally, Nafel, I don't know how you feel about this, I really like seeing the changes, like small changes in development. And you kind of start to wonder why. Like you may hear some really grandiose ability and then a slight change happens to it. Maybe that's because it was amazing in theory, but when it was in the game, maybe not so good. So I like to see that history. Do you like kind of going back and seeing how things have changed, or?
Yeah, to an extent. I mean, I think it's easy to get kind of tied up in the minutia of stuff, but I like sort of seeing the evolution of a class design as you go from the early concept to like, okay, now it's been tested a bit and we figured out what's really going to work and what's not going to work, and then that gets kind of refined and polished. I really like seeing that journey that each class goes through. Yeah. I think where I get worried sometimes and where I try to like take a step back and not get too sucked in, because I totally get sucked in. It's just you get into that rabbit hole of, oh man, I really like the way they pitched that ability and then they changed it. Yeah. So I try not to get too invested because I know that stuff can change, and I'd rather wait for it to hit its final form before I get really, really super hyped about it. But yeah, the journey is awesome.
Yeah, and you don't get to see behind, I think you've said this a bunch of times in different posts you've done, different conversations you've been in, whether it's on forums or Discords. What we're seeing with Pantheon right now, and say whatever you want about how long it's been in development or when did it actually start, but most people don't get to see everything that we're seeing, right? Like this is a different journey for a gamer. We're really seeing, like Greybox, right? Like we've seen Greybox stuff. Like I don't remember seeing that in many other games that are being developed that were this close to how the development's playing out. So yeah, you have to kind of understand that like things will change, but no, I understand what you're saying. If there's something you absolutely love and then it just disappears, it can be heartbreaking, I guess is the way to put it.
Yeah, so. Yeah. And we see that in live games, right? It doesn't, a game doesn't have to be in development for that to happen. Yeah. You get an expansion come out and all of a sudden your class gets ripped out from under you and completely changed. But
I see what you're trying to do to me now. If you're trying to get me to talk about WoW, everybody in the chat gets really mad when I start talking about WoW. I see what you're doing. I'm avoiding it.
Why would I want to set the community against you, Miles? I don't know what you're talking about.
Right. We had some interesting things here. I love that Mazikil? I think I got that. He said, are you sure you aren't a librarian in another life, Minus? That's such a librarian thing to do. Maybe in another life I am.
Maz isn't wrong.
And when you're reading to yourself, like if you're into books, like I'm not really into books anymore. I was when I was younger, but at least that you don't have, however you pronounce in your head, it doesn't matter. No one can make fun of you. So when I mispronounce everything, it's okay. So it's funny here. Someone said he's a librarian. He's actually a librarian in real life, LOL. So that's pretty funny. Okay, so classes were a big deal. Anybody who's in the green room, we already have 6 people in the green room. Obviously, that's a topic that's up for debate and discussion. Let's move on to, we touched on the website. So overall, now, if you said you like the website, what is it about the website that you like compared to the old one?
So I've been part of the community for like 3-4 years now. It's been a while. And for the past 3 years, pretty much all of us have been telling VR, hey, look, you really need to update your website. Like, the old website was good and they had some good stuff on there, but it was hard for them to update and stuff got stale really quick. Which is, development's moving at a pretty quick pace, right? Stuff is being redesigned. And the website is the first person that somebody new to Pantheon is going to see.
Yeah.
So our feedback to them for a long time was like, hey, you really need to update this website. And it turns out it was really hard for them to update their old website.
Yeah.
They told us on multiple occasions that they wanted to. It was just really hard to do it. So my most favorite thing about the new website has nothing to do with how it looks, but the fact that VR can now update it.
Yes.
Regularly whenever they have new information to put out, and it's not, we're not going to have to wait like 6 months to get a thing added to the FAQ. Like, they can actually update this stuff almost in real time now. Like, that is the best part of the new website.
Yeah.
Apart from that, I actually like that it works a little bit better on my phone than the old one did.
That's true.
Because, a lot of times I'm at work and I can't really pop up a browser and go look, but I can, thumb through on my phone and see what's going on. And I kind of like the layout a bit better. I don't know. It just, to me, it's a little bit easier to navigate than the old one was. The old one wasn't bad, but the new layout is a little bit better. So that's what I got.
Yeah, I would say that the old one was very layered. Like, click this to get here, then click this to get there, then click this to get there. This is a little more available. Like, you can kind of get to and from a little quicker without going page to page to page to get there. But you hit the nail on the head with something that I want to spend at least a couple minutes here on. And that's like the purpose of the website, right? So you kind of brought up the point of, a lot of the, I guess you'd say like old school followers have been really pushing for a website update, right? And I always thought like the website was more built to attract new people, like you said, right? Like, I think that a website, like if I think about the MMORPGs I've played, right? Like WoW, EQ, Blade and Soul. I mean, I can go on Black Desert. I played a bunch of them. I can't tell you much about their websites. I didn't spend nearly any time on there. I think maybe on WoW, I hit the forums every once in a while for the few minutes that I could stomach it before I got just like sick of the toxicity. But like I never felt like the actual game's website was much more than your initial discovery. So you brought up a great point about the website being there now, that if we have friends that we want to check out Pantheon, right? Or we are like, hey, have you ever seen this game to somebody? I feel a lot more comfortable sending them to the new website. At least more than I did before. So would you agree with that?
Yeah, totally. I mean, anytime I'm going to go talk to somebody about Pantheon, like, their first inclination is going to be do a search on it.
Yeah.
And they're not going to find, probably not going to find the forums. They might find Pantheon Plus, but most likely they're going to land on the official website, and so that official website needs to be good for someone who wants to come learn about the game, or, find out what is this Pantheon thing that I keep hearing about. Like, it needs to be a good source of information for them to get them started.
So it's interesting because Vandrad, I see you in there. He said that, the website should be a one-stop shop for all Pantheon-related info. I disagree with that. Think of any MMORPG I've ever played, it's never been the main site that was my main go-to. It was Alakazam for EverQuest. There was Final Fantasy Wiki. WoW was like Icy Veins, or what the heck was the other one? I can't remember now. Wowhead. And I think that it was always, Thoughtbot. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a really good one, Tech Ninja. So I never really look at the game's main website to be that. I look at it as like, remember when we used to buy a game, we had an instruction manual? Like that, like, had lore in it and like pictures and stuff, and it was pretty, and you're learning like, oh, that's what I think like an official website should be.
I think there's a difference though between a game that's in development versus a live game that people are playing. Like, a game that's in development, the official website should have all the information about what to expect, what's coming, what are they trying to build, right? All those things you named, like Alakazam and Thoughtbot and Wowhead, like, those were all games that had been out, that people were actively playing, and where the community was gathering information and contributing to those sites.
Yeah.
Like, that's what Pantheon Plus will turn into after Pantheon launches. It'll be all the stuff that's not on the official website, but that players think is important and want to share with each other.
Yeah, that's a good point. And it's funny, I think you read Vandrad's mind, because as you were talking, he literally posted almost word for word the same exact thing. So if you're Vandrad and you haven't told me, that's dirty.
No, I'm not him. He talks too much.
Ison says, man, you're old. I love that, because I brought up getting instruction manuals. That makes you old, talking about instruction manuals? Oh, man.
I mean, I'm not going to talk about the Prima strategy guides that I used to buy for games. So
I have some behind me right now. I legit have a couple Warcraft ones. I lied. They're all Warcraft. So,
of course they are.
Yeah.
I never bought one for an MMO. I never sunk to that level, but there were some single player games where I totally bought the strategy.
Oh man, like the old Elder Scrolls strat guides that were like a Bible. I mean, you had to have them. It was impossible to play
you
without.
couldn't figure out stuff without them. You're like, where is the thing that I'm looking for? Let me just consult the guide.
Yeah. All right, so moving along, we also had Joppa. Was it PAX? Now, did you get a chance to watch that?
I did, and it was an interesting panel. I'll tell you my three top takeaways. You're gonna laugh at two of them. My first is that poor Margaret having to try to moderate those guys. Like I don't know if anybody else got this impression, but watching that panel, I was like, they wouldn't let her get a word in. Like they
Margaret is with Ashes, right? I think she is.
I think so. I'm not sure.
Okay.
But it was just funny. Like, she would try to ask a question or steer them to a new topic, and they would just keep going.
Yeah.
My second takeaway, which a lot of people will sort of laugh at and sort of
I think I know where you're going.
Was when Smed talked about how he learned the hard way that once a game is launched, it belongs to the players and not to him. And I was like, yeah, because we all remember that moment when he learned that lesson. So, and then the third takeaway, I think, was really where they got into talking about the role of community and how it's, there's this sort of symbiotic relationship between the community and the development team where, the community is going to challenge the development team on stuff, but they're also a great source of feedback and ideas, and you can't really ignore them. And it becomes important to really have that conversation with your community to make sure that you're listening to them and that you're communicating with them and being transparent about the decisions that you're making with the game, because ultimately your game will succeed or fail based on how much that community buys into what you're doing. So I thought that was a really clear takeaway from that panel. I don't know, what'd you get out of it?
I'm obviously probably biased because we both of us have been pretty fortunate to be able to chat with Joppa and just kind of like understand him maybe a little bit better than some people. So I'm always really impressed at the way that he sort of approaches talking in group settings and also just how thoughtful he is when he talks. And you'll see it. Like in the interview I did with him, you'll see he doesn't just jump in to answer a question. He's not like me, just wait and talk, right? He's thinking a lot and you can see it. And when you finish a question with Joppa, you'll see him kind of just pause for a second. And he's very thoughtful. He's very prepared, not in a pre-prepared sense, but he prepares himself in that moment before he talks. Stoic, that's a great word. Tech Ninja just said that. And I thought he just represented himself very professionally while being able to get the message across. I would say that if I looked at that stream, and I'm not, me, I'm not a negative guy. I'm not trying to bash anybody, but there were two standouts for sure. I thought Joppa stood out, and I'm not an Ashes fan, but I thought that his name's Steven, right? Steven Sharif, is that correct?
Sharif, yeah.
Yeah, they stood out to me. They were there to pitch their games, but not stomp on anybody. And I think that there was a lot of alignment on the ideas behind what they wanted to do, but not what they're putting out, if that makes any sense. And it felt like, and if I'm not mistaken, Joppa has stated that the VR team, has a good relationship with the Ashes team. And it kind of came through there. I really felt like J-Todd was a huge outlier. I don't know. It's like he just wanted to, it seemed more like a marketing thing for him. I don't know J-Todd, so I'm not trying to beat him up or anything like that, but he didn't feel like he was part of the panel. It felt like he was just waiting to market himself and what he's done. And he often, when he was commenting, didn't seem aligned with the conversation. And then you had Smedley, who I don't have a problem with Smedley. I know, there's a past there for a lot of people. I wish him all the luck in the world. He was in an odd place because he's not an indie developer. You have 3 indie developers talking about scraping money together to put this vision out. And he's like, yeah, okay, well, I work for Amazon and I have more money than God to put this game out, right? So it was a really weird perspective. And I almost feel, I'm not gonna say I feel bad for someone who works for a multi-billion-dollar company, but I felt bad because it wasn't the best setting for him to be in. And it stinks because he does believe in building like worlds and he has a good history of it, but I think that he's been very business oriented in his ventures. And it just kind of comes out when he talks. I think if you talk to him on the side and it wasn't on camera and it wasn't in front of the world and he wasn't, it was also kind of phrased like, tell me about your game, tell me about your game, tell me about your game. And if it wasn't in that sense, I feel like you could talk to Smedley forever about games and it would be a lot of fun. But that
you're
setting,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Because I have talked to Smedley a couple times, and one-on-one, like he is as passionate about games as the rest of us are, and he's very much a gamer. I think the challenge is he's typically been in roles where he's very business focused, and so when you get him in a panel like that, that's what comes out.
Yeah.
And that's not bad. Like he had some good points about demographics and about how you can't ignore, the mobile and the console and the crossplay trends, and I think that's all true. I think he was a little bit miscast for the panel. Like, if it had been a panel about the business of MMOs, he would have been right at home.
And he would have been the standout, hands down, if that's what it was about.
Yeah. So I mean, I called out the thing about, he said he learned a lesson the hard way because I'm never going to let that die. But but it's not that I dislike Smed or that I think he's a bad guy. Like it's just he definitely has a different perspective from some of the others. And you mentioned J. Todd. J. Todd, I think, was funny. He reminded me of the guy I used to work for. He's a corporate vice president, and you walk in his office, and his entire office was whiteboards. And you go in there to talk about a problem, right? Like, hey, we need to do this thing, or there's something broken. And you would spend the next 45 minutes whiteboarding with him because he had some ideas that he wanted to share, and he wanted to get in and help you fix it. And like J. Todd reminds me of that guy. Like, he wants to get in and tinker with it and fix it, and he has ideas that he wants to share and that he's really excited about.
His excitement level was great. Yeah, and like I said, I'm not trying to bash anybody. It's just I felt like the two standouts again were Sharif and Joppa by far. Now you know what vibe I don't know J. Todd. I didn't play Shadowban. I have no connection to that whatsoever. And I used to play Mud, so I heard a little bit of that. But the thing for me is I just got this crazy Mark Cuban vibe from the guy. Like he felt and looked like Mark Cuban the whole time. Like just that really over the top energy. Again, probably the nicest guy in the world. And the last thing I want to do is sit here and bash anybody. But again, just I think in the sense of that panel, Joppa did a great job. And it wasn't a panel about beans, but it's one of the themes that I think we could take away from this month is like this process of there's a lot of people who are impatient with Pantheon right now. That's a fair statement. There's a lot of people that want more. They want to get into the world. They want alpha to come. It's just, and that cravings is because of how excited they are, right? For the most part.
Yep. Joppa did a great job. I would have liked to hear Joppa speak more. I felt like the panel was a little short. Yeah. Because I think there was more that he could have said that would have been really cool for people to hear, but he did a great job with the time that he had.
Well, when they were talking about the crossplay stuff, one of the things is everyone's like, yeah, crossplay this. I'm looking into that. And he's like, no, we're not planning that. But I can understand. Like he kind of flat out said, no, that's not really where we're heading. But I can understand it. And where I was going with that is that statement and this month, Pantheon has done a really good job at showing you how they're holding true to everything they've promised and everything that they're promised us and how firm they're staying to it, and they're really focused. And that kind of is going to lead us into our next topic of Pre-Alpha 5. But I think that as a Pantheon fan, you can kind of sit back and say Joppa's interview, the website update, our telling of the PA5, there's a lot in there to have some confidence, to help you build confidence or a little more trust. And I think all these things sort of tie together in a way. Now, is anything perfect? No. We didn't go into some of the issues with the website. We want the lore back, right? We need the old newsletters back in some form. Now, I know that can get tricky because someone could go look at an old newsletter and now they get all this data that's not true anymore. So how they do it has to be done right. But there's also a lot in there from Brad that you don't want to lose, right? You don't want to lose some of Brad's messaging and his beliefs and things he talked about. So you have to kind of find a smart way to do that, to have that history section. So there's definitely things missing. But again, when we look back at the class pages and how those were done, getting rid of utility listed on every class, like that was such a mess. And there's a lot of people like, well, is this class not utility anymore? No, they all were. Every single class had utility. Yeah. So you don't need it there, right? And simplifying that rule on the website, I think as someone comes in is going to make them feel better. So again, it kind of is this overall encompassing thing that a lot of these potpourri of topics from this month, this crazy month, I don't really need a lot of convincing, but I hopefully out there convince some people that, there's a lot to have faith in right now.
Yeah, Maz made a comment in the chat just now. It sort of feels like we're moving closer to actually launching Pantheon, and I agree. I think what we're seeing is we're seeing sort of that refinement where it's okay. We had a bunch of ideas for different things, and now they're starting to get refined and distilled down into what is really going to become Pantheon. And it's been a long road for a lot of us. Like there's people that have been in the community for going on like 8 years now. But there is progress being made, and I think we're all starting to see some of that. Even if it's not as fast as we want it to be, it really is happening, and that's really cool.
Yeah. So to transition into one of the last two topics that we're talking about before we jump in the green room and pull some people in to kind of talk about this crazy month and everything that's been going on, is obviously pre-alpha 5. And I would say that leaving this for one of the last things to talk about is probably appropriate because it was a pretty big deal. And it was a big deal for a couple of reasons. I think that there was more clarity to non-VIPs than we've ever seen. The simple fact that they showed the stream of what the VIPs were going to see with the gray box area from Thronefest. People got to see it. I don't think that's ever happened, like for a shakeout, especially something like that early on before we went in. And then you had the ability for them to let us talk about it. And I got to just once again, thank you to VR. Thank you to Japa, to Ben, and all the people who worked with us to allow us to put that out. So there's a couple things I want to say about that. I can't answer a lot of questions. Everything I said there is kind of what I said. It obviously gave me the permission to talk about being a VIP, so I don't have to worry about that anymore. Thank God. But the other piece of it was I want to make sure some people know something. Like I worked with VR to put that script out, and I saw a comment on YouTube, typical troll. But just to address it, they're like, well, this was an edited script, so how transparent was it? Here's how transparent it was. I had a couple interactions with the devs that I tied into it that I didn't talk about. I had in my original script, like, take that out. Just focus on your adventure instead of talking to us about different things that were happening and stuff. So that's fine, right? Not a big deal. And I had taken out the name of the boss that we killed and like the exact location. And that's it. And really that was just to protect, future story stuff that might come out with that boss. And just to kind of give everyone that sense of adventure in that area, because it was really fun for us. So like, we're just kind of having a small little, hide of like, hey, this is what we saw. Go check it out. See if you can find it. So other than that, every single word I wrote was my own and not edited. So I want to be very clear that VR really gave us the green light to talk about that experience. It wasn't doctored. It was my memory, typing it in, going to town, trying to rehash everything, getting excited and recording it. So please understand that, first of all, they didn't have to do that. Giving us permission to do that was huge. And I've just gotten so many positive comments from the community. So first of all, thank you. If you've watched it and you're here and you've thrown out positive comments, it was a blast. It was an absolutely incredible blast. Some people said that, minus, were you just playing or testing? I was testing. Don't worry. I submitted my bug reports, my screenshots to them. But we also adventured, and that's also data for them to collect. So I know you can't openly talk about anything, and I can't answer any questions for you now, but were you surprised that they allowed us to do that? Like, we really didn't tell anybody until it kind of came out. What were your thoughts on how that was presented? Be critical. You can make fun of me if you want. Whatever you want to do. Like, what were your thoughts on everybody getting to hear that?
So at some point, you and I are going to have a training session on the use of voice in your writing, because there were some phrases that you used when you were relating the story that were like wow, Minus, you're just really going over the top there. But no, actually, I really thought it was great. And I am so happy that VR gave you permission to do that. Because like that collaborative adventure that you had, that social experience that you had, like that's the soul of Pantheon. And that's, or at least that's what we all hope it is. You know, that's what we want it to be. And so, I mean, and I'm not ashamed to admit that I've been a VIP pledge for a long time, but even from my perspective, that was inspiring to hear you talk about that adventure that you had. And I hope that everybody who listened to it was like, wow, I really want to play that game, because that was the impression that I got from it. So I think it was super cool of VR to allow you to do that. I hope that as PA5 progresses, that we get the chance to see some more of that, whether it's from you or from Basgrim or from other community members that are in the PA5 test, for them to tell their stories.
Yeah.
I think that helps. First of all, it sort of helps show that, yes, Pantheon is real. It's something that's really going to be the game we want it to be. But I think it also helps all the people who don't have a VIP pledge, because let's face it, those are kind of expensive. You know, it helps them know like what they're waiting for. And it helps them sort of keep that hope alive that, you know, hey, once alpha happens or once beta happens, that they're going to get to experience this too. And there's going to be new stories to tell, because it's just amazing the potential that we see in Pantheon already. Even you know, even though we're probably still a year or more away from launch, just the amount of potential that there is from what we know, the little we know about this game, it's going to be an amazing game for years to come once it launches. We just have to get it there.
Yeah. And there was a great comment in chat by Ziplocs. And he said, you know, one of the biggest takeaway he got was they actually wanted to expand it. And they went and announced to everybody, not just testers, but they went and announced to everybody there was going to be 2 weeks later, people were going to get back into the World Terminus. And this is coming off of, what, a year since anyone's been, longer than a year since anyone's been in? Vandrad, you probably know to the second.
18 months, I want to say. Yeah, it was a long time.
So to have this huge gap to get people in to test, and then literally 2 weeks later, they're going to bring more people in. And like you said, it's the, and someone else said, you highlighted, you know, it's that we're getting closer. You know, I don't know how close that is. I don't want to sit here and speculate and get people overly excited by sharing my opinion on it, because it's just that, it's an opinion. But it's exciting. It's exciting, and I really can't wait for streams. Telling a story is one thing. If you guys would have been able to see it unfold and hear the laughter and the chaos and my shrill screams when I was terrified and dying to someone brought up the ice mage that whooped me, or the bears. I don't know what it is with bears, Nefel. If there's bears around, you're safe, because I'm just going to get eaten. It's druids. I think it has something to do with druids and elves, but
you probably disrespected too many druids back in the WoW days, and this is karma.
Yeah.
That every bear in Pantheon who has it out for you now.
Even when we were playing Valor, this is a funny story. We were streaming Valor. We were showing it off the first time, and the bears were really hard. And this bear was like all the way across the zone, and it's on one of our videos. And we're looking at it, and it just turns to me and runs like halfway across the zone to come kill me. And I'm like, what was that? We still to this day think it was the developer doing it to be funny. We don't know, but like it's always bears. I don't understand. I know
it's appropriate. You know, what's funny is that every game I've ever played has their one like world mob that is just really scary for some reason. Like in Vanguard, it was turtles. You know, like you did not mess with the turtles, because they would come after you, and they were big and scary and had like spikes all over them, and you're like, oh my god, is that a turtle? Apparently for Pantheon, it's bears. So, you know, Minus has shown all the rest of us that we need to be careful about bears in Pantheon.
Oh, it's funny. Raven says it's unbearable listening to him talk about bears. Very well done. Dad joke of the night. Good job. So yeah, PA5 was a big deal, and it's still a big deal, and we'll see what else we get to learn from it, and what's going to be shared out there. I think that Jop by himself has been a lot more forthcoming. I think VR, I mean, give them credit, guys. They're being a little more forthcoming than they were in the past. It's good stuff. So, okay. So the last thing I wanted to kind of announce is Nefel. It's centered around you, obviously. So this week we've been talking for probably a couple weeks. Is that fair to say? Maybe a little more, maybe a month. This month's been fast.
Yeah, a couple weeks.
A couple weeks about, just more unity, more bringing stuff together for people, more teamwork. And if I'll leave it for you if you want to kind of talk about what was announced and what that's going to look like, and then I'll kind of jump in to add some flavor to it as well.
Sure. So here's what really happened, guys.
Okay.
Minus had talked about, multiple times about how he wanted Pantheon Plus to be this portal for the community and to, link everything together and to really promote content creators and all this awesome stuff that he's doing with the site. To he's got a whole team working on it to add, cool new capabilities to it. And here I was looking at the Pantheon Crafters forum and saying, man, I could get Minus to do all this work for me. So no, actually, really, what we announced, if you haven't heard, Pantheon Crafters will become part of Pantheon Plus, and that's going to bring benefits for both sets of users. We actually share a lot of community members between the two sites already. But one of the things it will do for the Pantheon Crafters folks is it will give us the capability to host articles kind of in a blog format, to do things like video guides, a lot of really cool capabilities that Pantheon Plus is going to be lighting up in the near future. We'll be able to take advantage of those capabilities as well as we start to get into the crafting systems in game, hopefully very soon VR.
Joppa's in chat. He had to come in and say that I barely made it through. So Joppa's in on the bear puns. But yeah,
we'll just have to bear with him. But yeah, so from my standpoint as Pantheon Crafters, like it brings a lot of really cool capabilities to the table and a lot of ways that we can build content that's useful to the community. The thing that it does for Pantheon Plus is we're bringing with us that forum back end that Pantheon Plus doesn't really have. So once we get it all integrated and set up, Pantheon Plus will be able to host things like class discussion forums or lore discussion forums. All the stuff that we like to talk about on these shows, you'll be able to actually go into a forum on Pantheon Plus and discuss it even more. So it's just kind of a win for everybody, and it made a lot of sense for us to join forces rather than trying to keep doing two separate things. So I'm really happy that Minus said yes when I asked him.
Yeah, and we're more than ecstatic to have you. We've been very fortunate. What started with me and Haya, and then unfortunately just became me for a while, and that was never, I've said this 1,000 times, Pantheon Plus was never supposed to be the Minus show, and I don't ever want it to be the Minus show. I really, really don't. It really wasn't ever our goal from day one. Now, don't get me wrong, I really enjoy this. I enjoy making content, but I enjoy more that if we're going to have a community for people to experience Pantheon through, that they don't have to listen to one person telling them stuff. I think that's really what's hurt a lot of gaming communities is everyone sort of gobs onto this one voice, whether they're right or wrong. And it creates singular thought process. I'm not about that. I want a team that's innovative. I want to be on a team that's, challenging each other and has a different viewpoint, has a different opinion. Nelf and me, I don't craft at all. So the last thing you ever want to hear from me is about crafting ever. So, not only just the fact that, you've established yourself with the community in such a big way, you're trusted in the community matters, the thing that we are built on, you're trusted in that. You've been pitching that for longer than I've been around. So it's exciting to have, Drac, yourself, Theric, and other people on your team who are joining or writing and that kind of stuff. Like, it's just really exciting. I look at it like if we're going to build something and we're going to say community matters, then we need to do it with a community because we're better together. And I know that's super cheesy, but there's no better way to say it. So I'm really excited to have you guys join us. He's hinted at a few changes coming. I will tell you right now that our beta site, which we do our tests on, the whole main page is reworked and done and ready. The article submission is there. There's some saving issues that are happening. So they're fixing some saving issues and then a preview issue. So what's going to happen is anybody, it doesn't have to be Unuf, it doesn't have to be Drac. Anybody who wants to come on Pantheon.plus and submit an article for discussion will have the tools to go on, submit an article with pictures, with whatever they want to link in there, and actually have their article up there for people to discuss. And that toll is very close to being done, but it has to have an auditing system. So like people are going to submit an article that has to submit to our editors, and our editors will be able to preview it, suggest changes. It goes back to the writer does audits, sends it back, and then it gets posted, right? So it sounds really easy to just say, hey, why isn't there just a thing to post articles? Forums do it all the time. Well, this can be a lot different. It's going to have its own landing page. There's going to be a lot that we're going to be able to have trending articles that have the most comments or votes or the most popular. It's really a big system. And when it happens, you guys can all come write articles. That's what community is all about. It doesn't have to just be Drac and Nefel writing articles. You guys can too. And we want to enable, Pantheon Plus has always been about enabling people to become content creators in any way, shape, or form that is. Is it a podcast? Is it just audio? Is it a video? Is it writing? Is it lore? Is it fan fiction? Like whatever you want to do, we want to be able to support. So no stories about me and bears, though. There is limits to what I can take. So.
Too late. I already asked Drac to make some bear memes for you.
Great. We should change my I'll change it's the skeleton. When people follow or sub, the little skeleton from EQ comes up and laughs. But it'd be pretty funny if all of a sudden like a bear ran across the screen, like chasing my avatar.
Yes, that'd be perfect. I do want to, before we open up to the green room, I do want to also echo something you just said. One of the things that we have tried to do with Pantheon Crafters for a long time is really allow people to voice their own ideas and opinions, because it's so easy to, you sort of feel shy about it. Like if you have an idea that you want to bring forward, it's a little bit daunting to go post that on the official forums. So for a long time, we've been trying to start community discussions to give people that voice to, say, hey, come put your ideas out there and let's all look, at each other's ideas, and we all become stronger that way. And so, when you were talking about allowing people to write their own content and helping them become content creators, like I want to second that motion. The more of us that are putting our ideas forward or talking about what we think is good or bad, the better Pantheon will be. So, I hope everybody's excited about being able to do that with Pantheon Plus, because I know I am.
Yeah, and there's so much more to come. I've been saying it for a long time, but we really got a good team working now. We have Burris in our front end developing, and we have a back end developer in Potpourri who's been building. Like, there's a lot of smart people now. Before it was just minus the dumb one trying to build a website. Now there's a lot of smart people. So that's one thing we did well. Okay, so if you're ready, let's go ahead and jump into the green room. We got quite a few people in there. If you were in there before and had to jump out, jump back in. Let's go ahead and start with, we usually make Drac wait till the very end. Let's go ahead and start with Drac, see what he's up to. I'm going to pull him in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, Drac. What's going on? Oh, so I pulled Drac in here and there you are, Drac. I pulled Drac in from up top and he doesn't have the headphones or muted. And as soon as I pull him in here, he does it. So I don't know what that's all about. What's up, Drac?
I'm going good.
So what do you see with a bear meme for you?
I was not prepared to be first.
Yeah, you're never first. I always make you wait towards the end because you're like a member of the team. So you have you don't get a benefit usually. But tonight you get a benefit, so you get to go first.
Excellent. Well, I voted for PA5 because I'm super excited about PA5, and not just for those that are testing, but also just because I just think it moves the project forward, and we've been waiting for since 2018 to move the project forward, and it's just nice to be able to tell people like the game's still alive, it's still going, it's still here, it's not vaporware, and we are continuing to move forward with this thing.
Yeah, I agree. You're going to get the vaporware stuff all the time, right? No matter what you do. That's just life. That's what's going to happen. But yeah, I think that this adds a lot more credibility to people who are on the fence. I think that's a really important point. So,
yeah, I think it does as well. Honestly, I don't get the vaporware stuff too much when I talk to people about Pantheon. Instead, I get, oh, I didn't realize it was still being worked on. So it's nice to now have news happening on a regular basis where people can see that yes, it really is still being worked on.
Yep. Time. Jack, anything else for the group? Just random. What do you think about Pantheon Crafters, a team expanding? You've been a big part of sort of trying to help get this article thing rolling. You've been a big tester for it, given a lot of feedback, helping kind of design what things should look like. Now it's going from just you being the only person who might write articles for us to getting a partner in crime on that. So what are your thoughts on that whole thing?
The articles is going to be super awesome. I can't wait to do that. I'm hoping to write articles with different people. So if you want to kind of jump in, you can kind of co-write some articles with me. We're bringing back Rankum, except we're doing it in the article form.
Spoiler.
And so, yeah, so all you got to do for Rankum is just like rank things on whatever topic we choose. So that's super easy, super like fluid to do. So if that's something you want to do, get a hold of me, and I'll put together some different Rankum teams to write different articles. And when the articles launch, I already have, as Tech Ninja was saying, we already have one article all the way written with by 3 of us that did some ranking. So it's going to be super fun.
Yeah, it was a great idea. Rankum, I loved Rankum. It just, when COVID life for me ended, even though we're still in COVID, and I had to go back to work full time, it was rough. Like, to do 2 different weekly shows and a podcast every week was pretty rough, and then find time to make content videos, and then make time to work on the website. So it was tough, and I loved it. As soon as Drac came in, he's like, "Hey, how about Rankum?" I'm like, "Well, what do you want to do?" And he came up with this idea to do Rankum, but in an article form, which is fine. I mean, Rankum is a great idea in my opinion, and I'm not saying it because I came up with it, because I definitely didn't. Ranking on the internet is a huge thing. It's just like, there's so much to talk about. Like, if you say, "Hey, rank your top 5 vegetables," people will argue about it. It's the greatest thing ever. If a ranked list, people get mad about. So, but very cool. And crafting, I don't usually do a lot of crafting, but as Theric has drawn me into the lore, Nafel has drawn me into the crafting, so I'm probably apparently going to be doing everything in Pantheon, even though all I want to do is just kill mobs. Well, good. Then you and Nelf can both make crafting my stuff for me. So I'll get you the mats.
Excellent.
I'll get you the mats. All right, Drac. Well, thanks for jumping in, buddy, as always, and thank you for everything you do.
Thanks for having me.
Take it easy, man.
First thing we're going to craft for Minus is going to be a bearskin cloak, and he's going to have to go collect the bearskin.
Where's Theric at? No. Let's go ahead and pull Thorn Deep. We're going to pull you in next. If you want to unmute and turn your headset on, we'll pull you into the room as soon as I see that. So here we go. Thorn Deep, what's going on, man? How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing awesome. So this has been a crazy month. You also started a show this month. There's just crazy. This is the craziest Pantheon month. I don't think people realize how much stuff's going on. So if you want to talk a little bit about that, please do. And then just let us know kind of what you thought about the month and what kind of stood out for you.
Awesome. Well, thanks. Yeah, we started Terminus Tavern. I got the idea from a post on the website. Ben and I posted, like, where are people coming to meet? And I responded, on Discord, and a lot of people just on Discord, people were talking there. And so I decided to create another space on Discord for people to meet up and encourage people to role play on the website. And I also wanted to do a show where sort of similar to what Pantheon Plus is doing, bringing people on and talk about different topics. And since, again, I was inspired to create the whole thing by Ben and I brought him in to talk about his fan fiction. And so we're just moving forward with that. We also had Theric on, and Tech Ninja will be on next Thursday. I'm really excited about that. The discussions have been great. And I also just want to send out an invite to anyone that any content God, I can't talk tonight. Sorry, guys. Any content creator or anyone who's written fan fiction that would like to be on the show, please get in touch with me. It's definitely a welcoming, inclusive environment. So I definitely want to get that kind of exposure out to people. So yeah, just another place for people to come and talk and gather around Pantheon.
Love it.
Yeah.
Dude, I can't say enough good things about the Tavern Discord and the role play that's going on there. It's awesome to see people role playing. I mean, I may not do a lot of role playing myself, but I've always been a supporter of role play in MMOs, and like just seeing people kind of taking what little we know about Pantheon already and working with that to kind of flesh out who their character is or what kinds of adventures they're going to have. I mean, it's awesome, and I really I support that 100%, and that's why I'm in there contributing every so often, trying to help egg people along, get them to role play more. But it's really cool to see.
Excellent. Yeah, I've been really pleasantly surprised. I had no idea what was going to happen with it, and people really been taking the ball and running with it, and it has been a lot of fun. And like Unifel, there are a lot of people that have come that not really familiar with role play or what it's about. It's kind of gets a bad rep, like something that's not done behind closed doors or whatever. And just kind of shedding a light that it's just a place for people to come have fun and, like you said, flesh out their character and kind of immerse themselves in that alternate person and just have some fun. Just have some fun chatting with other folks. So.
And Isin just said something great. I think I've called him something different every time I said his name. He just said this. He said, role play just makes the world richer, even if you don't participate. So I'm in there. I'm not a role player. I don't write a backstory for my character, even though I'm kind of being convinced to do it now. But I won't lie. My character, I changed my name from Minus to Minus Paradox, the Elf Destroyer. So I'm definitely in there, and I don't talk a ton, but when it's quiet, all of a sudden I'll look at someone who's an elf glaringly or make some kind of dirty elf joke, and we'll move on and get people talking and trying to get me kicked out of the tavern. So like that's my little contribution.
You start being abusive, then otherwise everything goes. We don't want any hate going on, but
Listen,
otherwise it's a very inclusive place. So
there haven't been any serious stabbings in the tavern yet. I don't think.
Not yet.
Yeah. Well,
so before we move along, Thorndeep, what about this month? Talking about these different topics and the things that have happened across the Pantheon landscape. What stood out most to you?
Well, like Drac mentioned, PA5 for me is also huge. Again, just because it just puts out there that Pantheon is alive and well, and it's moving forward, and that's so important just to keep the momentum. I mean, we, those of us that have followed it understood that, but having something concrete to really show, I think, has made a huge difference, at least with people that have been kind of on the fence or don't really know about the game. It has made a really big difference when I talk to them, that this is happening.
Yeah.
So that's been huge.
Awesome.
Also, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead. I was just saying it's awesome.
Yeah, and then the the website. I love it's beautifully done what they've done. The one thing about the website though that is to me glaringly missing is the tenants. I've looked through the site trying to find where the tenants are, and to me, like, that was the one thing that drew me to Pantheon, and that's to me huge. That should be one of the main things you click on and find, I think. So that's the one glaring omission on the website is the Pantheon tenants, because it's the foundation of the game. And
so what also pulled a lot of us in, right? So like If you're still looking to pull in new people or have people discover the game, I think a lot of us would say that Pantheon tenants section was probably something that was one of the first things we read that stood out to us, right? So that's a good bring up.
Yeah, that's a good point. There is I think they mentioned a little bit of it in the Pantheon difference, if I remember correctly. But you're right. Now that I think about it, I didn't actually see the tenants listed out like they used to be, and that does seem like an oversight. Those are important.
Yeah. So that would be the one thing, my qualm with it, because it's like that's the thing that sold me on Pantheon. I read those and I was like, oh my God, yes.
Yeah.
Praise the Lord, they understand.
And Thorndeep, you just got a good point from Joppa, so you may have just influenced that positively. So
I hope so. I mean, I really do think that it will. I mean, again, it's beautiful. All great information there, but it's one of the things that makes the Pantheon difference.
Awesome.
And it's listed there clearly. So anyway, that's
awesome.
Point.
Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Thanks for jumping in. Thanks for sharing the cool thing you're doing with the community there. Everything that we do to have people have something to do that isn't worry about when the game's coming out is positive, in my opinion. So if we're role playing and we're not asking when is Pantheon coming out or what date is it, or we're in good shape. So thank you, Thorndeep. I appreciate it, man.
Thank you, man. Have a good night.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna talk to Vandrad, and then we're gonna jump to Hoye after that. So Vandrad, you are up. If you have your mic muted or your headset muted, turn that off, and we will move you in now.
Our next victim.
I don't know. I think when we bring Vandrad in, he's not our next victim. We become the victims. We become the hunted. What's up, Vandrad?
That is not fair. That is profiling, and I'm against it.
All right, you big ogre. All right.
Scar. I'm a Scar.
He's a
We'll
Scar.
see. No, you're a shaman. You can't be a Scar.
Yeah, hello. Scar can be shaman.
No, they shouldn't be. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, they are.
All right. So what are your thoughts right now, man? I mean, we've had a crazy month. I think a lot of things you've wanted to see, you know, more testing, real testing. You wanted the website. I think the only thing that's not off the checklist right now is like a new map you've wanted for a while, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, it would be nice to at least get some idea of how the world has evolved over time, considering I think the last map is now, 6 years old or something like that.
Yeah, it's really old.
Did you know that the map of our country is even older than that?
I would not be surprised. I was glad to hear that, those shakeout sessions were announced and that, PA5 is happening now or right around the corner at some point, whatever. I'm not really sure what the definition of these shakeouts or where they fit, but it's nice to see that we have progressed up through that VR feels that there's enough stuff now in there ready to go that they need testing on. So I'm really happy for that. I had convinced several guildmates, to up their pledges to get into this, to get into it so that we can then start generating more interest with other people that haven't decided to pledge.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll see how that turns out.
Yeah, I know we really can't talk a lot of details about it, but I only got to talk to you very briefly, but you think you listened to the rewind. What did you think of you're being an outsider to that situation, and for someone who isn't VIP or doesn't get to see what testing is like, or doesn't get to, maybe they saw gray box and like, oh, nothing's done in this game. What'd you think about VR given the okay on that? And be critical. What'd you think of the presentation?
I think it is actually kudos to VR for allowing somebody to give honest feedback about their experience in a game at this stage in development. Having the developer say we're really excited about this and this and this is one thing. Okay, people understand that a developer is always excited about their own project, but to have people who have put money into the game to then get to tell others of their natural experience, what they really thought about it, is much more compelling to another person to decide whether or not they want to, follow this game and or start pledging money. You as a non-developer out there actually has greater weight in influencing other people than the developers do. Because they see you as a more honest pulpit, from which to speak, whereas the developers are always biased.
Yeah, and it's funny because even if a developer isn't, they are, right? Like with the current culture that we're in. So even if they were telling you verbatim exactly how it was going to work, there's going to be enough people who are like, I don't know.
Because what I would like to see eventually, again, to expand upon this idea, is to, once you get into a position where VR will release more streams, is not to have 6 developers doing a stream, but to have a developer follow a group of testers around, put them all into a Discord, let them just engage in their little banter and whatnot, and show that so people can see exactly what real players are experiencing, how they're experiencing the game, what their interpretations are, what their feelings are. Yes, they can direct it a bit into, specific areas so they don't give away, spoilers and that sort of thing, and put it on a 15-second delay so that all the swear words get bleeped out. But,
good luck with that.
Yeah, give the average person out there the viewpoint of what an actual player is experiencing.
Yeah. Then you just got a big yes please from Joppa Vandra. But go ahead, Nifal.
Yeah. So you remember the community stream from, I think it was PA4?
Yes.
Yeah, I would love to see more of that. Like, let's just get a group of people that are in there and watch them go through some stuff together. That would be awesome to see.
Yeah,
So
and
I hope they
you
do it
could
again.
even do you could have, let's say, 5 developers, each one following a different group of 6 in different areas, and they just switch the camera views from one to the next. So you're not watching the same group, every single time. They're just, flipping back and forth to say, oh, this group is now over here and this group is over there. So it's more of an actual stream than it is just watching that same people.
Like the NFL red zone of Pantheon.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. We're going live to so and so because their group just wiped.
Minus is swearing up a storm at his group because somebody didn't heal him when he pulled aggro. Let's switch over and see what's going on.
So again, the players can be a much more effective PR tool than the developers can be an effective PR tool.
You know what? If we're going to do it that way, though, I think we need Joppa and maybe Sacred just doing the commentary.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, that could be fun.
That would be hilarious. Yeah.
Or Sacred and Ronek.
Do it in a Howard Cosell and a Harry Carey voice.
Well, here's something interesting. I've never really talked about this out in the open. And nothing I'm saying is going to happen. But so obviously, I'm tight with Baz Graham and Nathan and a lot of other content creators. That's how we all came up. And one of the things we've talked about is like how cool it would be like if we all got to do a stream together, right? And it's not, there's nothing here solidified. We haven't talked to VR about it or anything. And there's 2 trains of thoughts there for me, right? So one of the things that helps sell Pantheon is content, right? So,
right.
As funny as it sounds like, when the death penalty was announced, we ran out, we made a video. Then Basgram had a video and Nathan had a video. And there were 3 pieces of content, the same topic. But because of how different we are, it was kind of worth watching each one of those, right? So I kind of think like, as much as if I only got to do one stream, knock on wood, please God, if I ever got to do a stream and it was either, all together, we all had 3 different Twitch streams running at the same time, Nathan, me, and Baz. I wonder if that is the best move, even though it would probably be the most fun, or would it be better to have us split up so that there were 3 completely different experiences that people could watch?
I would say 3 completely different experiences because you're going to adventure in 3 completely different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to give a wider spectrum of potential, foibles and failures and successes and different approaches to things. You could also fit more people into watching it, and, people can follow their favorite, that sort of thing. And to see how you each react differently as separate would be very interesting to watch after the fact.
Yeah, and it's not so much like, it's not a hits thing, right? Like, I've said this 1,000 times, like, nobody who just covers Pantheon is going to become the next, multi-millionaire streamer. It's not going to happen. That's not our goal here. But when you think about it, like you just said, having 3 different experiences for people to watch instead of one it's more content, it's more things to show Pantheon. It's more, and I think that's what's important. So knock on wood, I pray that someday I get to stream, before the game comes out. But it's interesting. It's been an internal debate.
Kind of like Drax's idea, Pantheon Hunger Games.
Oh,
well, I don't have to worry about. I don't have to worry about
Nathan. Give each of you a group and put you in a dungeon together, and only one group can win. And,
I don't have to. Nathan, I feel. Yeah. I don't fear Nathan. I've never seen Baz play, so I'm not going to say much there.
You could actually have. So you could put 2 groups in 2 separate servers, both in the same dungeon. Start them off at the exact same time in the exact same location, and see how far they get and how each group approaches the content differently. That would be interesting. And you could even do kind of like a side-by-side video afterwards to see just how the 2 different groups
how they approach
play.
Different things. I'll tell you this. I will even take Ronek in our group. How about that?
Yeah.
I'll take Ronek. That'll be our handicap.
Yeah, we could have a team community. Yeah, from the recruitment thing earlier. Yeah. Bring those teams back and let's do that.
There we go. Could you imagine if we got those teams going? How ridiculous that'd be. Oh
That's
man,
the
Awesome.
PA5 community stream right
there you
there.
go.
That
The draft.
would be awesome.
All right, well, Vandrad, anything else? And thank you for kind of going way off topic with us there, but
I
really good
never
stuff.
mind going off topic.
So, anything else for the week this month? You feel good about this month? You feel good about this upcoming weekend?
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to all of the stuff that's coming up. I'm hoping that the changes that we have seen, the rework of zones, means that we're not going to have this happen again, and that future productions of zones will increase, or the time it takes to create a zone is going to decrease, which means, all the tools and everything that they built makes this production process get faster and faster and faster. So hopefully, even though they had to redo a few things, it means that overall the rest of the zones that need to be completed can be done in actually less time. So, maybe we'll see alpha sooner than what might have been expected. Maybe that means that, beta wouldn't necessarily need to be as long, which means, hey, release gets here a little bit faster.
I didn't want to say it, but I'm kind of right there with you on that. So,
Same here.
Vandrad, as always, man, thank you so much for sharing.
Anytime.
Take it easy, man. Thank you.
Bye.
All right, we're going to bring Hoya in. I haven't talked to Hoya in a bit. I'm excited, actually. I saw him pop in there. So let's bring Hoya in, our resident warrior tank. Let's bring him in.
I heard he's going to pull a bear for you.
Hey, if he's tanking it, I'll stab it. What's up, Hoya?
Hey guys, how are you?
Good, man. How you been?
Well, just survived Hurricane Sally. So
Oh, geez. Well, surviving it's good. How? I didn't even think. I forgot you were in that area.
I'm in Pensacola.
Ah,
Oh my
geez.
gosh. Hopefully you didn't have too much damage from the floods.
No, we did all right. Actually, we did pretty damn good here. My in-laws had a couple trees go down. I was over there clearing out trees. A lot of my friends lost their cars and their garages were flooding, all kinds of stuff. But overall, it really wasn't too bad.
So what do you think of this month, man? I haven't talked to you almost this whole month. A lot of stuff's happened. What stands out for you? How are you feeling right now about Pantheon? What do you want to see more of? What are you happy to see? I mean, kind of floor is yours. It's a potpourri episode, so.
My biggest thing is going to be seeing how quickly they can transition from PA5 to Alpha. We just spent a year and a half nearly in the dark, and now we're at PA5. So I kind of, obviously I'm glad PA5 is here, but I kind of feel like, it's kind of deserved at this point. That's not a good word, but it's kind of expected to be here by now. Now, with that being said, this whole push was to say, all right, once we get through PA5, we're going to be able to progress a lot quicker than we have, So I'm excited to see how quickly we can go from PA5 to Alpha. That's kind of one of my things. I think PA5 is looking good. I'm not in it, but I think it's from what I've seen, it's pretty good. So I'm excited about that.
Awesome. Were you able to catch the episode of the Rewind to kind of hear about that kind of adventure?
Yeah, and that's one of the things I wanted to bring up too. And it's because when you were talking about when you logged in, you were somewhere in the world, and then your friends were somewhere else in the world.
Yeah.
And normally that's not a big deal. Like for WoW, for example, hey, I'm in Ogrimmar. You want to meet up at Ratchet City or whatever, Yeah. That's not. Everybody knows. Okay, yep, that's where it is. It's on this zone, this continent, this flight path. Yep, I'll be there in 5 minutes. Whatever, But when you log into a brand new game that you don't know what the hell is 20 feet north of you or south of you, you have no idea, and your buddy is somewhere way the hell else. He could be a block down the road or all on a completely different continent. That's so cool. To me, that is absolutely worth taking off work. My wife will probably, she'll understand because she knows I've waited forever for this game, but and all these normal people, they'd be like, you took a week off to play a damn game? They would absolutely judge the shit out of me. But you'll never get that experience back, you'll never be able to have that first login moment,
Yeah. And I'm not out of line because I can't answer questions I didn't talk about, but just going into what I talked about already, I talked about how there's no map, there's no mini map, there's no thing on the compass that shows you where your group members are. Like we literally, I think the example I said in there is we looked around until we could both see something that might be the same. And we're like, all right, well, where are you? Are you north or south of it?
You know what, Linus, though, that's actually good. And that's like the whole debate about maps. Like that's what we've been talking about for years, is that when you don't have that crutch, you actually start to learn the environment. You pick out landmarks and you're like, oh yeah, I see the windmill, or I see the statue or the tower or whatever. And you navigate by that. And like, it pulls you so much into the world more than it would if you had like a map and a GPS sitting right there.
Right, and that was one of the things I was thinking of too when I was listening, is that for the most part, I haven't really cared one way or the other as far as maps are concerned. You know, if you have a full map that's got everything marked, or just a mini map, or nothing at all, I really honestly didn't really care. But listening to you explain it, like, I think it sounds kind of cool not to have a map, or even just a map that kind of fills in as you traverse the world or something like that. You know, but like just hearing you guys talk about like, well, there's this big city over to the north. Oh yeah, that big city's to my south. So you were talking about Throne Fest in the distance or whatever, and so that's really kind of cool. And that's also one of the things I was thinking about as well with how big the world is. You know, if that city's big enough that you're 25 miles from it and you can see it, and then somebody else is another 25 miles in the opposite direction and you can see it, like that's pretty cool. Like that's pretty cool. I like that.
Yeah, and I was with you, Hoye. There is that big section of the community that's like so anti-map, and to be honest with you guys, it just kind of never, like, it felt like such a weird thing to put like a line in the sand on, like, oh, if there's maps, it's gonna ruin the game. Like that's a little harsh. Like, yeah. But it's funny. So like, I never had an opinion on it at all. Like it was just like you. So that aha moment of, I think I said in the stream, like I learned the zone in 2 nights. Like I knew where things were. I could go to WoW right now and get lost in one of the cities that's been there since vanilla because I don't pay any attention. I just look at the map. Yeah. It's really kind of interesting because something I didn't care about, I sort of understood a little bit better all the people who were against having the maps and everything. It started to make more sense to me.
Yeah, and I'm kind of hoping that kind of hits me that way about the limited skill slots. I kind of hope it hits me that way too. So I'm patient. Yep.
How about your warrior? You're feeling good about your warrior still with some of the changes and the
we talked about it a little bit on the comments on the YouTube channel about why we didn't add the 20% armor class. It just I completely understand. Like, just because it's not listed doesn't mean that it's not there, or they took it away or something like that. It just felt really odd because, like, to me, that was a huge part of the class's identity, to show that, they're kind of like the really, heavy metal defensive type tank, kind of like, it kind of felt the same way when you were talking about the Druid class, with it not listing, I forgot exactly what it was, something about
their pet.
Yeah, their pet class. It just kind of felt like it belonged, like you should have known that,
Yeah.
I don't know if maybe they just changed it to where now it's going to be like a secret epic ability you have to, achieve at level 40 or 50 or something like that. And if that's the case, that's kind of cool. I don't want any spoilers. And if it's going to be something you're not, kind of like necessarily born with per se, like when you first build a character, then I can kind of understand that. But if something you're born with and it's a very class defining thing, I think it would just make more sense to have it, listed. But I think for sure they're going to keep it. I don't think they're taking it away or nothing. It's just kind of odd.
Awesome. Yeah. And when I look at the tanks, I mean, I could go on and on about classes, but when I look at the tanks, like, to me, it's warrior and everything else. If you want to be a real tank, you're a warrior. If you want to be a tank with some utility, you pick the other ones. Like, and I'm not trying to trash on Dire Lord, or I'm not trying to trash on Paladin. They have their place. But like you said, that heavy metal meat shield, sign me up all day, man. I am such a traditionalist when it comes to tanking and healing. Like, for me, it's warrior cleric. That's it. I don't want to hear anything about hots. I don't want to hear anything about protective bubbles. I want to just be spam healing, and I want to be taking damage. So very, very traditional when it comes to those two roles. So
I think the Paladin, I think they purposely may have listed a lot more healing than like what you were talking about as far as defensive or tanking stuff. I think they may be trying to show people it's while it's a hybrid, it may not be the most defensive type of tank. I'm sure it'll do great in group settings or something like that. But I think maybe they're trying to hint or foreshadow that it may not be the top dog as far as defensive. It may do better on the healing side and whatnot. But I'm excited. I'm excited to see how the 3 tanks play. I out of the entire class and everything, I'm really excited to see how the 3 tanks play. I think, in my opinion, Dire Lord is going to be the main tank when it comes to like spells and magical bosses and stuff, and I think Warrior is going to be the defensive, meat shield.
And then if you have undead, you get the paladin in there to cause some damage, is what I'm thinking. So we'll see. I think that I don't want to say I think that all the tanks are going to be able to do all the content, but they've said straight up some are going to be better at content than others. It's doable, which is good, but they're not going to maybe be the most efficient. I'm okay with that. Nafel, how do you feel about that? Having a doable but not being the most efficient option?
Yeah, so I think to some extent it should be based on the type of content. I think where I get a little bit antsy, because keep in mind I played a paladin in EverQuest, and while we could tank for a group, come raid time, they're like, oh yeah, you go sit in the corner, you're no good to us. What I want to see is a situation where any of the 3 tanks is viable, but they do things in a different way, and that might mean that their group uses a different set of skills. Like if you have a Dire Lord tanking versus a Paladin tanking versus a Warrior, the other members of the group are doing different things so that you get the most synergy out of that. That's what I would like to see. Apart from that, I think it's totally okay for the Dire Lord to be more effective against certain kinds of enemies and the Warrior to be more effective against others and the Paladin to be more effective against others still. That's totally fine. But it should never be so much of a distinction that you can't do a fight if you don't have the right kind of tank. Any of those tanks should be able to do a fight. It might just be a little bit harder for one or the other.
I don't know.
That's my opinion on it.
I knocked this is empty. Thank God. I didn't realize that. And I literally spilled it forward onto my keyboard, but there's nothing in it. So whew. And then I picked it up and just kind of pulled it back, and people in chat called me on it. Somebody said we saw that, and somebody said bear run.
Yeah,
awesome.
Dallas folks are always fumbling things around.
Well, Hoye, thanks, buddy. I really appreciate it. It's good hearing from you again, man. And hopefully you're right. Hopefully everybody's right. We keep hearing Alpha's closer than we think. I don't want to say that's a fact, but man, it'd be cool if that was a thing for sure. Because, we know that there are a ton of Alpha contributors. We just know that it's a lesser price point. We've brought that up. It's logical that that's going to be the thing. So, however many people are signed up for VIP at that higher price tag, there's going to be a lot more people that get to come in and give feedback and test. And I think that ultimately it's going to help VR a lot once we get to that phase, but at the same time, you kind of do worry when you open the floodgates to a lot more people. It's a little harder to control that NDA. So I'm sure that's a balancing act right now for them. And I wouldn't want to be the one having to figure that out. That's for sure.
Yeah. And I think you're right. I think their biggest concern right now is NDA. So.
All right, man. Well, thank you very much. I'll talk to you later.
Take care, boss. Take care, NFL.
Good talking to you, Hoya.
All right, we got 2 left. We got we're gonna bring in Tech Ninja, and then we'll end with Coco Mojo. You good with that?
Heck yeah.
All right, so Tech Ninja, we're bringing you in if you want to unmute your mic. I see that, and we're bringing you in now. What's going on, sir? How are you?
I'm doing all right. How about yourself?
Good. Let me turn you down. I got you up pretty loud here for some reason. Go ahead. Sorry about that. No, you're good. You're good.
No worries. Yeah. Hey, congrats on the merger, guys. Wonderful things to come. Good to see you guys coming together as a community.
Yeah, he threatened me, but we won't talk about that live on stream.
I told him I wouldn't make the daggers he really wants. He's been on me for a year about how I need to craft him some really awesome daggers. And I was like, okay, if you want these daggers, you're going to have to work for them.
Well, speaking of your crafting, thanks for the Wrath Bombs over at the Terminus Tavern. We had a good time. It's my first time really even role-playing over there. So shout out to Thorndeep for creating that new crevasse for all of us to join into and have some fun. I've never even played D&D, so it's really interesting. When they're like mine, I heard stories about the Moonglade role-playing server on WoW.
Oh, geez.
And yeah, right, exactly. So never even dabbled into that. Hey, but I just wanted to continue on that tanking combo. It's becoming apparent that there's unique needs, unique classes, unique LAS setups. It's sort of a theme that you see VR building upon, and how Pantheon's moving forward with that idea. And I think that's how they really want their players to play the game, is to stop and think and look, open their codex and talk to the group, and what have you mastered recently? Have you talked to this? Have you talked to that guy? I think it's a really good look for them. I think it's good the way that they've chosen to move forward with things.
Yeah, without a doubt. Now, from this standpoint of this whole month and everything that's been going on, have you been following it closely? And if so, like what's really stood out to you? We had the website, we had the class stuff, we had the PA5, we had Joppa at PAX, we had...
Yeah, honestly, tunnel vision for me. I plan on maining a paladin, and the class changes between old website and new website. And actually, I was going to ask you guys about this. The specifically unlisted thing were the paladin hymnals, and I was curious if you think, was that too bardy, or do you think that's something that actually removed? Because I know it's, and I'm putting air quotes up here, but is it not listed spells? Is it something that we may see later on, or do you think they completely removed that stuff because it's sort of meshing two types of characters together?
That's actually a really interesting point. Do you have anything on that, Nefel, before I talk about that?
Yeah, so I mean, I noticed they were removed, and honest, it didn't really hit me too hard because I figured they weren't quite set in stone to begin with.
Yeah.
But if I think about like the way that a paladin operates versus the way a dire lord operates, like a dire lord is very much about what he does to the enemy.
Right.
It's about he's without getting into specific terms, like he's using fear as a weapon against the enemy. He's using the power of like blood magic to.
Beans dropped. Joppa just answered your question. So
all right, well,
there we go. Joppa said it.
My fan fiction face right now is all right. I don't have to rewrite excuse my French, but okay.
Awesome. Yeah.
That's great to hear.
But if I think about the paladin, like the paladin is, a paladin's like an avenging cleric, right?
Yeah, right.
So the paladin has definitely more of kind of an offensive bent, but the paladin is also still like helping out his group. So I figured that in the final version of paladin, there will be some amount of the paladin making their group stronger, and that's the trade-off for them maybe not being quite as strong as a warrior individually, is that they're making their group more effective by being there, so it kind of makes up the difference.
Right. Well, I mean, they're always going to focus on undead and unnatural, I guess, is where their forte is, and as Mina said earlier, warriors are really going to be the brunt force. They're going to be the guys that are going to be there for jack of all trades. They're probably going to get you through it. Dire Lords look like probably they're going to take the biggest hits and keep on trucking. That's just like mile high view from observing what the different versions of the pages have been so far and what we've seen of the characters played on streams. So yeah, I like it.
It's interesting too when staying on this topic of tanking, that you sort of I always play a tank. I've said that 1,000 times. So I like in WoW at one point I had every tank max level, fully raid geared for heroic raiding for endgame content where we were. I liked a couple of reasons. I like to know what tanks were capable of doing. So when I had an off tank with me, I knew a little bit about their class, so that I could kind of be like, oh, hey, try this if they wanted advice. Right. And also just that usually when we would raid, I would tank and get us through the content. When the content was on farm, I'd typically jump to an alt and teach someone else how to tank, right? Because like the more people that you had that were skilled tanks, the better you were, right?
Not only that, it gives you a different perspective of how you looked at it.
Exactly. So for me, I've usually played every single tank that I can. And the interesting thing is, and this is just my opinion, but usually there are healers that work well with certain tanks. I've noticed that WoW, every healer can heal every tank. In WoW, for example, a spiky tank, like a Demon Hunter, for example, wasn't as great to have, for, somebody who had just HOTS, for example. Like you wanted to have big, powerful, like direct healing on that tank, right? So there's just interesting. And then so HOTS work really well for a regen tank. So like a Death Knight, for example, was regen and health all the time. Now you're adding to that regen with HOTS, and all of a sudden that's a great synergy. So I kind of look at, and I don't know that Pantheon's going to do this, but it just might happen naturally. I kind of look at the healers that are in the game right now and I say, well, how do they match up to the tanks? And I feel like you're going to have a very stable damage output coming into a warrior. I don't think you're going to see a warrior's health bar, jumping, right? Like it's going to just kind of be consistent. I think you're going to have a Dire Lord jumping up and down a lot. And I think that paladins are going to be somewhere in between from taking damage. At least that's what I'm thinking right now.
I'd say that's fair. It's probably fair.
So, and it'll be interesting to see like how the healers will, like if I'm a warrior on an alt, or I'm a cleric on an alt, like who do I want to heal? Like, oh, good, we have a warrior, right? Or is it, oh, good, we have a Dire Lord because my heals take a little bit longer to go out, but they're going to be self-healing enough that I'll be able to fill that gap in. It's going to be interesting to see synergies with how these classes work.
Yeah, totally. And what I'm hoping is that there's enough flexibility there that you don't find yourself locked into hard combinations, but if I'm running my paladin and I've got a cleric healing me, maybe I do some things a little differently than if I had a druid healing me.
Absolutely.
So there's that variety there. Like, oh, I've got a shaman healing today. Let me adjust slightly so that I work better with the shaman. That's what I'd love to be able to see.
And Joppa just said with what we were talking about to see the inverse of that on spell damage, right? So that makes a lot of sense. All of a sudden, my warrior, solid as can be, fighting a big dude with a club, ogre, no problem. All of a sudden, we're fighting a mage, and I'm like, help!
Singe.
I like that.
As long as it's not a spell casting bear.
That's terrifying.
So I have kind of like a theory crafting question since I got Novell here. So what do you think about unique and rare materials when it comes to crafting? And sort of like a sub question on that, what do you think about rare resource crafting points, like going into Amber Fate and finding an anvil there, and that's the only place you can like forge your acclamation gear, or things like that nature? What are your ideas on any of those type of rare resources?
Oh my gosh, yeah, we could go for a while on this one. So, I think what I want to say here is that it's very important if we want crafting to coexist with loot, and we do want loot in the game, right? Because it's cool when you take down the big boss or something, and you get a nice item out of that. You need to have risk versus reward preserved, no matter how the item is generated. So, if I get a drop from a boss, there's risk because I had to go fight the boss to get that drop. If I'm crafting something that is equivalent to that drop, then there needs to be a similar level of risk, and that really comes from how do you get the materials to craft the item. So maybe those rare materials that you got were either guarded by the boss or they were a drop from the boss itself or something along those lines. Like that has to be preserved. You can't have it be easier for people to go get the item crafted than it is to go kill the boss that drops the equivalent item. So as far as my stance on like rare materials, that's where I see those kinds of things happening. What I think is bad is when you have like a gathering node that anybody can walk up and hit, and you have a 1% chance with each hit on that gathering node to get the rare. Absolutely. That's bad because people will just keep hitting that gathering node until they have 1,000 of those rares. So yeah, that's my thoughts on that. As far as the other part of the question, I think it's cool to have like special crafting locations like the Forge and Amber Fate, but I also think that it can easily be overdone. I think of Elder Scrolls Online as a good example of this. Like they had this cool idea that, hey, we're going to put crafting stations out in the world, and you go to a specific place in the world to get a set bonus on your items. And that was a cool idea, but then they did it like 50 times. And like every zone had one of those, and it was just way overdone. Like, I want this set bonus, so I have to go over here, but I want this other set bonus, so I have to go over there. And it got to where it didn't feel meaningful anymore because they had done it so much. So what I would rather see is like places of power like the Forge and Amber Fate. I want those to be really rare and special. I don't want them to be something that's like, this is what you do every Tuesday night as you go to one of those.
Yeah. Yeah, that's old school WoW mentality. Yeah, you got to be in this particular place to craft your Shadow Weave or whatever the hell it was. Forgive my French. But yeah, it's pretty neat thinking about all the different ways, especially talking back on class synergy and all the different, just like invest your time in the world, where whatever that is, whatever that means. No RNG, just get me out there playing, immersed in it, immersion bumper there. it's fun to get things moving and all the juices flowing with the way that Pantheon can be thought about. So it's a great community conversation. Thanks for letting us be up here tonight.
Yeah, man. Thanks for jumping in. Good stuff. Really good stuff.
Good to have you, man.
You hit 2 topics that me and Nefel could literally stay here for 4 hours on. Class theory and crafting. So
awesome, guys.
All right, Tech, have a good one. Thanks, man.
Yeah, have a good one.
All right, so our last guest tonight is going to be Coco Mojo. Let's bring him in. Coco Mojo, what is up?
Yeah, what's up?
How you been, man? How are things? How's this month been for you? Where's your level of excitement for Pantheon? What stood out? What are you waiting for? It's kind of potpourri. It's up to you, man. What do you want to talk about tonight?
I don't know. The website is I think I was the only one who voted for the website, but I wasn't aware of the packs or anything like that. So I wasn't aware of the any of that going on. And then they've been posting this website for a long time, so finally getting to see it, I was pretty excited about that.
There was little things about it too that maybe I think people maybe notice, but don't like. I just like how some of the stuff on the website actually mimics some of the interfaces in game. Like there's like it's kind of like all the art assets are coming together, and the old site kind of just felt like one of the things that made it feel out of date is that it didn't match the game anymore. And I feel like this site matches. Like if someone were to see gameplay footage and see the site, they kind of match. Like before, it almost felt like the site was a different game than what you were seeing. So
it was just a whole bunch of same with the news site, but it was just a whole bunch of concept art and outdated concept art.
Yeah, it was outdated. I never really thought about the site matching the game, but now that you mention it, it kind of does, which is cool.
Ronik did a good job. We gave him a shout out last week. I don't want to give him too many shout outs here and get Ronik's head too big, but this guy's not a website developer. He took this on. He's a designer. The guy's a genius designer. He's done work on really famous magazines, some crazy layouts, and he's a very artistic guy. That doesn't mean you're a website designer. And he did for standing up and saying, "Hey guys, let's do this," and kind of taking the lead on that. He did a hell of a job. And I know that like everyone in VR at some point put their hands in the pot, like programming something little so it would work for him. And he was kind of pulling everybody in. But, it was really cool for him he made this happen. He really did. And he knew the community wanted it. So, props to him.
Oh, yeah, I totally give him props. I mean, one of my projects during this COVID stuff was learn to code. Because I'm a little, I don't know if I'll have work after all this, but so learning to code. But yeah, I went through HTML and that CTL or whatever stuff to make websites, and that is it's simple once you do it, but at the same time manipulating it to get it to look the way you want it and stuff, that can be a real bitch. And I don't think that they're exactly using those to make these sites, but
yeah,
it's still, I mean, that's an entry-level one, and even that was a bitch. So,
yeah. No, trust me, when I was doing the old Pantheon website, which was based on our old Pantheon Plus website, which was based on WordPress, I still had like 7,000 things I purchased, like to add effects and do exactly what I wanted, right? I spent 12 hours one time trying to get one thing to move slightly to the left, and I could not figure out for the life of me any of the code I put in. Nothing would affect it. I couldn't figure out what line of code it was. I couldn't figure out what add-on was doing it. And it was literally like a slider. There was like an option that was called nothing that you would think would be that. And I clicked it because I was just so tired, and it was like literally a full day. And then all of a sudden it was fixed. And it's one of those moments like you thank God it's fixed. And then you just kind of put your heads in your hands like this and just sit at your desk like, I hate my life. So I get it too.
No, it's a learning experience. You're always going to remember about that slider now.
Yeah, that would be the first thing I check. Just click all the sliders. Let's see what happens.
I mean, I used to set up guild sites back in the day, and I would have to edit custom style sheets and stuff. And I know how to do it, but it sucks. So Coco Mojo, kudos to you for going and learning, HTML and how to actually build that stuff. Because I know how much of a slog that is, but it is a good skill to have. Like, it's the basis for everything else that you'll do.
No, you want to talk about the slog right now is what I'm going through. I was going to go do Udemy, but I found the free YouTube version of it. and I'm learning Linux.
Oh,
That
geez.
is a freaking slog.
Oh, geez.
I used to know bits and pieces of a lot of this stuff because I used to do like fixes on servers and hard drives and controllers and all this shit. I used to do solder work, so I knew very basics. But now I'm getting in there. I'm trying to actually learn the crap because all that stuff got shipped over to China, and now it's getting shipped over to India or somewhere instead of here. So now I'm trying to do the actual coding because that's all still here. And that is a slog.
Well,
is
I will
Linux.
put you in touch with Potpourri, my backend guy, who constantly yells at me for using a Windows PC and tries to get me to use a Linux, which, by the way, will never happen. So every night, hey, you know, hold on, I have my virtual machine hooked up through my Linux system to do. I'm like, dude, just put Windows on your computer. Like, wow, what are you doing? But no, I get it. The Linux crowd is, look at Drax says he thought he was nerdy until he met Poi. That's hilarious. Well, Coco, thank you, buddy, for hanging on and closing out the show for us, man. I'm happy to hear you're excited about the website. I think it was a big deal. And honestly, it kind of ties into the class stuff, but I just kind of separated them because there's a lot more than just classes on there, right? Even though that's what I dug into. There's a lot of stuff on there. And I still haven't dug through everything. You know what I do want to give a shout out to? And I think we did this on the rewind, but if you guys haven't done it, on the main page, if you go all the way to the bottom, there is a link for Team. I don't know if everyone's clicked on this link yet, but if you go to pantheonmmo.com, down at the very bottom, it says Team. If you click that, it is the first time that we have a full look at the active Pantheon team. There might be people who aren't listed here, but this is the biggest list that I've ever seen, and it actually breaks their team members down by exactly what they do. It's kind of interesting because we've always wondered like how many people are on the team. And again, this may not be everybody, but it's the biggest list of team members and what they do that I've ever seen them have. And it even lists like additional contributors to people who helped in different stages of the game or maybe just were in for certain projects. So if you guys haven't seen that, please check that out. Just scroll all the way to the bottom of the page where the terms and service is. There's a little link for Team. The team's a little bit bigger than I think some people thought. So it's kind of exciting. But Coco, again, thanks, buddy. I really appreciate it. And you know you're always welcome on the show. So
Hell yeah. Have a good one, buddy.
take it easy, man. All right, Nafal. Well, I mean, we were pretty much on time. We only went like 6 minutes over tonight. That's not too bad.
Yeah, I think we did good.
For you and me, that's solid.
Yeah, that's okay. I mean, we will almost certainly have more to talk about in the near future, but I'm crossing my fingers for we get through PA5 and we get a lot more information in preparation for Alpha.
Yeah.
And I can't wait for those shows to happen, man. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. And I just can't wait till all kinds of crafting stuff comes out because I just want to ping you and be like, hey, and then just see 7,000 smiley faces come up on my screen. So the day that comes, you are on Pantheon PlusYou. Just know that. And I'm just going to sit here and eat popcorn. Just have a big bowl of popcorn. Just like,
Hey, I can talk crafting all day long. Even with what little information we know right now, I can go forever on crafting. So that's not a problem.
all right, guys. Well, once again, thank you. We've never done a potpourri show like this with a bunch of topics all at once, but I think it was worthwhile. I don't know for a fact if we're going to have a dev stream next week, but it is the last Thursday of the month. So maybe we will, maybe we won't. It's weird because I think the 1st of October is the Thursday. So maybe they say it's going to be that week. I don't know. But whenever the dev stream is, we will definitely recap that. You'll find me and Theric on that show. So everybody, awesome group tonight. Thank you guys in the chat. Happy birthday to Kat. We threw some of that out there. If you didn't see, the chat was giving that to you. Thank you for the bear puns. We had a lot of bear puns. And listen, I'm a dad. I love dad jokes. You guys are always welcome to throw puns and dad jokes in the chat. I thank you for that. And maybe we'll work on some kind of bear animation that comes across the screen chasing my character when people subscribe. It can't be that hard to figure out. So once again, Nafel, thank you very much. It was an absolute pleasure to do the show with you tonight. Thank you to the chat. And we'll see you on the rewind this weekend, everybody, if you come to YouTube. And other than that, we'll see you after the next dev stream. Thanks, everybody.
Have a good one, everyone.